Okay, Johnny.
All right, well, welcome back. This is Two Beards in a Bible. I'm John Swaino.
I'm Dave Tenney.
And we're going to be looking today into Matthew chapter 15, and we're going to be starting at about verse 22.
Let's start in 21.
You want to go to 21?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it makes more sense.
All right, so Matthew 15, starting at verse 21, and we'll read through verse 29.
Yeah.
So Matthew 15 verse 21 says, Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, Send her away, for she cries out after us. But he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs, which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. Jesus departed from there, skirted the Sea of Galilee, and went up on the mountain and sat down there.
Okay, so we've got this Gentile woman, and one thing we forget sometimes is Jesus was sent to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus' mission was to turn the Jews back to God. He wasn't there at that time to graft in the Gentiles.
Right. That came later.
That came later.
Apostles.
Thankfully for you and I, right?
Right.
But here's this Gentile woman, and her daughter has obviously got some kind of crazy demon possession problem, and she is she obviously knows who Jesus is. She's calling him the Son of David. I don't know if she was a proselyte or so she had some familiarity with the Jewish scriptures.
Right.
And she's following after him, and she's just wailing and crying. And what's Jesus tell her?
To go away. It's not my.
Yeah.
Not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
At the time, and uses that language. It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs.
Yeah.
That's kind of a. That might not make you feel so good.
Yeah.
But
what's funny is in today's, people treat dogs better than they do people.
And that's the truth.
I mean, you can literally go to prison for killing a dog.
Right.
But you can abort a child legally. I mean, it's insanity.
It is. Yeah, that's so true. And even with we have a cat upstairs that we love so much that my wife says we have to buy this special food for.
I got two of those cats.
And it's like, but yes, in this, there's some kind of a reversal of sense when it comes to animals these days. But not that we shouldn't be nice to them, not that we shouldn't be those that care for the animals that are left in our care. But yes, and as we see here, this lady for having that statement just thrown out at her, which I don't take that to be a statement that would make me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
No.
And but she didn't give up.
No.
She had, and
she's very witty.
Right. Yeah. To come back with, yes, Lord, even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table.
Yeah.
So she
makes me think of Lazarus.
Right. And she put herself in the right place. She wasn't puffed up in her thinking of herself. Well, how dare he say that about me?
Yeah.
She knew who she was, and she knew who he was.
Yeah.
And was able to humble herself, and that.
And Jesus spoke about her great faith. How great, and you think about the Jews at that time would not have, they avoided Gentiles. They were separatists.
Right.
And so Jesus, he kind of kind of had that attitude too, a little bit. But you know, he had a certain mission that he was on, and that's what it was. But
he had compassion, you know, and even as we see now that he desires that all men come to the knowledge of the truth.
Yep.
And you know, the same thing there. That was, you know, he was still compassionate.
Yes.
Towards that woman, even though that was a little bit outside of the scope of what he was doing at the moment, and even when you know, as we looked before, when Christ and the apostles were going through and helping people, he had gone through this place and felt pity on the people and stopped for a little while and helped to heal their sick and to minister to them and so on. So he has that great compassion for mankind.
Absolutely. In fact, you know, he died for Gentiles.
Right.
He died so that Gentiles might, you know, be able to be reconciled back to God. He died for Jews too.
Right.
And that's why I think you know, Paul says, you know, to the Jew first and also to the Greek.
Right.
You know, so you know, you think about Jesus, he came to the Jews first.
Right.
And then also to the rest of us.
Right.
So
yeah.
Okay, let's turn a page in our outline here so we can see where we're going here. Okay. Matthew chapter 16.
Starting at verse 13.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Where do I read to?
Verse 20.
Okay. It says, when Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of his prophets. And he said to them, but who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. I also say to that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on the earth will be bound on heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that he was Jesus the Christ. Okay, so it seems like here Peter has figured this out. So there's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that has been kind of misapplied.
It's right up the alley of what we've been talking about with the Calvinists and with that whole the predestination idea. This kind of goes along with it in that, it's definitely been taken out of context.
And I think, I believe the Catholic Church, they would say that Peter is a first pope based on this.
Right.
You know.
And they're putting that, they're putting the rock in the wrong place.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the rock isn't Peter.
No, it's what he said.
Right.
What he said.
It's that truth that cannot be taken away, that Christ is the Son of the living God. Yeah,
I mean, if you just read it, he says, so Peter answers and says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he says, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So God must have revealed this to Peter. And he says, I also say that you are Peter. Now, I believe in the Greek it says Petros. And the idea, he says that you are a rock. You are a rock of faith.
Yeah.
He says, and on this rock, not Peter, but what he said.
Right.
That he is Jesus, that he is the Christ, the Son of the living God. He said, on this rock, this confession that you made, I will build my church.
Right. And Christ is also spoken of as the chief cornerstone.
Yes.
And that lines right up with it. Peter is not the chief cornerstone.
No, Christ is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I think because of that, I think people have taken that way out of what it means. So the idea is Jesus was going to build his church on the idea that he is the Son of God.
Right.
That's what the church was going to be built on.
Yeah.
On Jesus.
Our faith is built on that. When we hear the Word of God, we gain faith in who Christ is, and with that confession of faith, as we often say before one is baptized, upon your confession of faith, we baptize you into the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And that's that's that unget-overable truth.
Yes.
That Christ is the Son of the living God, and it's just that simple. It is something that people take out of context and will and that's again another one of those things that have allowed what has been called devilish doctrines to take hold.
Yeah. If you think about, the history of the Bible, pre-Abraham, we had what we refer to as the patriarchal period. But the idea is before Abraham, there were no Jews, there were no Gentiles. I mean, everybody was on the same playing field.
Right.
And then after Abraham, then God had a special people. What is that?
Anderson upstairs.
I thought it was something growling.
Guinea pig is getting pretty wild over there.
But the idea is that the Jews were God's special people. So that was the next period of time.
Right.
And then after that was the church, the period of time with the church, or Jesus kept saying that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Well, when the church was established, that's what he was talking about. The church is the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
This period we're in, Paul will talk about the last days. Well, that's what we're in right now.
Yeah.
The last days.
Yeah.
It started when Jesus died. This was the last age.
Right. Yeah. And so, that may be the only thing those guys late at night have read on the television that tell you that we're living in the last days.
Oh, we are living in the last days. We have been for over 2,000 years.
Right. So you hear that, stop listening to them, because after that, everything else is probably wrong. As we look there further into that statement that we read, or the scripture that we read there, he said in verse 19, "And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So what are the keys of the kingdom of heaven?
The way I understand this, and maybe I'm wrong, was that, the rest, God's actual revealed will was going to be revealed through the apostles. And I believe, with the exception of, James? The rest of the New Testament was revealed by the apostles. I believe James was written by Jesus' brother, correct? His earthly brother.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So, but he's telling them that, the things that they write down, that is revealed to them, are going to basically lay down the rules for how men are to act and how they're to be saved and redeemed.
Right, and I should have prepared to bring this information to the table here today, but from what I remember in studying this is that statement of whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. The way that actually reads out in the Greek, if I'm not mistaken, is "will have been bound." So that whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven. So it's already been established. The keys to the kingdom that are being given is the word.
Yes.
And so that word's being given, and those things that they're binding because of the word that is given will have already been bound in heaven.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that Peter had some special power,
right?
That he's and the reason I would say this, and I would go back, and I believe it's in Acts chapter 18 or something, where Paul rebukes Peter. So if Peter was the all-knowing, all-powerful apostle, then why would Paul have to rebuke him? So that's I can't remember where that is at. Again, if I was cooler, I would have. Let's see. I'm sorry. It's in. Let me see here. So they say. I think it's in chapter 15. I could be wrong. I'd have to actually. Boy, this is not good to have all this dead air, John. Well, here's.
Go ahead.
Here's the point, and I didn't have that ready, but if you just read in, I'm going to say read Acts 12 through 16, and you're going to see there where there were a bunch of Jews who were saying that Gentile converts had to be circumcised, and Peter had fallen in with that group. And Paul went there and rebuked Peter for doing that.
That's a good point.
And the only thing I would say is if you're going to make the point that it was Peter that had the keys of the kingdom, and all of this was on his back, then why was Paul allowed to rebuke him?
Right. Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
And it really is. Why would Christ be given all authority, die on the cross for the sins of everyone, and then just give all the authority to some man?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And
No.
And it is something that if you stop and think it through, it doesn't make sense. But it's something that a lot of the world's religions, the Catholic religion, for sure, they put a whole lot of weight on Peter there, and they put a whole lot of weight on the ability of the Pope to make new rules.
Yeah. Because they believe that the Pope has direct communication. They believe that whatever the Pope binds on earth is bound in heaven.
Right.
And they use the scripture.
Right.
But that's a misuse of this.
Right. Yeah.
The Pope is just a man.
Exactly. And I think that as we look, at least especially probably throughout all the history of the popes, we can find that they were just men. In the way that
because there were a lot of mistakes made.
Right.
Right.
And even in recent history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to read through? We got some time here. Why don't you read 21 through 28 through the end of the chapter?
Okay. Starting at verse 21 in Matthew 16. From that time Jesus began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised the third day. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord, this shall not happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men.
Let's stop there.
All right.
Man, that's a tough.
Right. Right. And that's, I was thinking this earlier and was going to bring it up in one of our earlier discussions here, that Satan really only needs you to be off just a little bit from the will of the Father. And here we have Peter, who is, again, here's going to your point before, here's a place where Christ rebukes Peter.
Yeah.
So again, we can't put all of that stock in Peter that the religious world does, but anyways, Satan just needs to take you off the target just a little bit, and that's the scary part. And that's the part that we need to be careful of how we
Yeah.
what we think. It may sound like right here, Peter, I'm sure it sounds like a really good idea to protect Jesus because, again, he is the Son of the living God.
Right.
But
he just said this.
But again, looking not past the end of his nose, not seeing the reality of what Christ's kingdom is. It's not here on earth. He's not going to rule
right.
here on this mortal coil.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I say all this, and First and Second Peter are probably my favorite books in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. That tied with John. I mean, it's Peter is such an identifiable person. And the thing that's interesting about Peter is he makes a lot of mistakes, mm-hmm. and it's written down. His mistakes are written down. This is one of them. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for us to identify because Peter's not a perfect person. He makes mistakes. But Peter repents of these things. He turns mm-hmm. it around.
Right.
And that's the thing that I love about Peter is, he's, like I said, I can read him and I'm like, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
right.
and he's, we get to see him with his warts mm-hmm. and everything. But
yeah. And it's it's a very zealous thing to do.
Oh yeah.
He's certainly acting in a way with a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And care.
But, in the end, his faith is what carries him through.
Right.
And we see him, if you read 1st and 2nd Peter, it's just the best instruction for the everyman.
Right.
In fact, I'm studying that right now with the kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, good thing to go through. So, I'll read till the end of the chapter since I stopped you. It says, Then Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. Assuredly, I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Mm-hmm. Some interesting things in there.
Yeah.
Very interesting things. So, talks about us taking up our cross. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that? What do you think? How do you explain that?
Taking up the burdens.
The burdens.
The cross is something that that was certainly. I think of Christ carrying the cross. So we take up our burdens and we lay them upon Him, and we don't get dragged down in those things.
Yeah.
But realize that He has the power to overcome those, because that's exactly what He did with the cross.
Certainly, that cross was a symbol of physical death. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that again, you could make that likeness to death. Take up the deadness of our physical lives and follow Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. He says that he who desires to save his life will lose it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think he's making the contrast between living for your earthly life,
right,
and living for your spiritual life.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes me, just think of those that have gone to such great lengths in their physical life to do everything they can to avoid ailments, to be perfectly healthy and exercise every day and so on. And we understand that the scriptures tell us that that bodily exercise profits a little. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's not completely worthless.
We could all use a little bit more of it. But, the thing that we really should concentrate on is our spiritual exercise.
Yeah. You get a lot more benefit out of that than you will pumping iron.
Right.
So he talks about that what would a man do to gain his own soul? Mm-hmm. And again, we mentioned earlier about the story about the rich man and Lazarus, and that's, I think, a good example of that.
Right.
Here's this rich man who would give anything just to save his relatives. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know if you've ever been super sick before, but I have. Mm-hmm. and like, when you think maybe you won't make it through, mm-hmm. it's like you would give anything just to make it through, or one of your kids gets sick.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I'll give you anything I got if my kid can get through this thing.
Right. Right.
He's just trying to put things in perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's, again, you point to the examples in history of like the Egyptians. And we see all the riches and everything that they put aside. You see it in the Aztecs as well. All these civilizations from long ago that put so much stock in the physicality of life.
Yeah.
And there it's still buried in the dirt.
Yeah.
Or it's been stolen.
It's been stolen. So he talks about, he says, the Son of Man's going to come in glory of his Father with his angels. And I think that just speaks about the end of the age. Mm-hmm. And then he says, some of you are standing here who should not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom.
That's another nail in the coffin of those premillennialists.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The idea there that, some of those that are standing there with him. So what was the Son of Man coming in his kingdom?
I mean, that was the establishment of the church.
Right.
I mean, when he talked about he was going to build his church on a rock.
Right.
Right. When he preached the kingdom is at hand, when John the Baptist preached that. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean,
it all lines up.
Yeah. When we talk about the Lord's Prayer and he says, your kingdom come, he's mm-hmm. praying for that and it happens.
Right.
In fact, you could skip ahead and read Acts chapter 1 and see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. And there we have, there again, people still waiting for some kind of physical kingdom, and yet, in context, when you look at the scriptures as a whole, we see that it's clearly written out. Yeah. But, and I think I'm guilty of this and I can study more. We can all study more. And take more of our time and look through the scriptures, but especially in times gone by, I've been the one that sat by and just listened to what the preacher said and just took it at face value and didn't look for myself, and that's where a lot of people are in their study of the scriptures.
Yeah,
and we don't want to leave anybody with the idea that they can just do that.
Yeah,
if you're listening to us, that's great, but open up your Bibles and look for yourself. Don't take our word for it, because we're just two fallible people.
Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, I'm guilty of this. I mean, a lot of sermons I listen to, I don't get a whole lot out of them.
Right.
What I get out of it, maybe if I get one thing and I go home and study about it, mm-hmm. then I actually got something out of it.
Right.
And I tend to, when I listen to a sermon, I'm usually looking for that one thing that I can say, okay, right. I'm going to go home and study about that one thing.
The human attention span is short.
It is.
And as one preacher that you and I both know always tells us to stand up, speak up, shut up, and sit down.
Yeah.
And to keep it short, 20
yes.
minutes, because and you people just can't pay attention much longer than that.
Yeah.
Well, they can, but it's difficult.
Yeah. I think it's easy to have like a hour-long Bible class.
Yeah.
Because you can be engaged, you can interact in it. But if you're talking about listening to someone's hour-long sermon, sometimes it's torture.
Right. Right. And that's something that I hate to say it, I preached for 48 minutes last Sunday.
John.
But
did you finish and start over?
But you see, that's the thing, is the person that is doing the lesson, they learn the most, and that's what we have to study for ourselves. We can't leave it up to somebody else. And so I'm up there for 48 minutes. I'm having fun. I don't know that anybody else was.
Yeah.
But so that's we have to look for ourselves. We have to study these things out and be diligent about it.
So if you're a preacher and listening to it, try to make a sermon to just get one point across.
Right.
Don't try to get 10. Don't tell them everything you know.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going over. Can you believe this?
Yeah, we're pushing 48 minutes now, aren't we?
Well, 30 minutes, but hey.
Well, all right. I guess we can end there. So thanks a lot for being with us. I hope that it's been an edifying time, and hope that you'll see fit to come back and study with us again. If you have any questions, then of course, by all means, you can leave them in the comments section.
I think we're going to have a special Christmas episode next time.
Right. So we'll get together, and that should be all kinds of fun.
Oh,
There's all kinds of things to talk about with Christmas.
Absolutely.
All righty.
All right, buddy.
Well, thanks again, and this is Two Beards in a Bible. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks.